You know, every single time you go online, you're using a system that is one of the most fundamental yet invisible pillars of the entire internet. It just works, so we never ever think about it. But this unsung hero, this piece of core infrastructure, has a massive flaw built right into its DNA. To put it bluntly, the internet's phone book is broken. See, every website, every online service, it has a number, an IP address. But we humans, we use names, right? Like example.com. Well, the system that translates those names into numbers, the domain name system, or DNS, it was built on a principle that is just dangerously outdated in today's world. Pure, simple trust. So that immediately brings up a couple of huge questions. How exactly is this system so vulnerable? And maybe more importantly, how in the world do we build a fortress around this phone book to protect our digital lives? That's exactly what we're going to break down right now. Here's our game plan. First, we're going to get a handle on what this phone book actually is. Then we'll look at its core weakness and two big ways it gets exploited: poisoning the data and turning the system into an actual weapon. After that, we'll dive into the defenses, and finally, look at the big cryptographic fix that's changing the game. All right, first up, the internet's phone book. Its job sounds simple, but it is absolutely essential. It's all about translating the names we use into the numbers that machines need. And that system is the DNS. Seriously, without it, instead of typing google.com, you'd have to remember something like 142.250.191.78. The DNS is this massive, global system that saves us from that nightmare. It's what makes the internet usable for, well, all of us.
And the crazy part is, this whole thing happens in a fraction of a second. When you type in a web address, your computer sends the request to a DNS resolver. Think of it as a super helpful librarian. This librarian doesn't have the answer on hand, so it starts a hunt. First, it asks a root server, the main card catalog of the internet, which points it to the right aisle, like the .com section. From there, it gets sent to the final authoritative server, the one single server on the whole planet that has the official record. That server gives back the right IP address, it gets sent back to you, and your browser connects. Simple as that.
So here's the catch. This really elegant system was designed way back in a much earlier, much smaller, and frankly much more trusting era of the internet. And that brings us to what you might call its original sin. To really get this trust issue, you have to think about how DNS communicates. It mostly uses a protocol called UDP, and the best way to think of UDP is like sending a postcard. It's incredibly fast, you just write it and send it off. But just like a real postcard, there's no proof of delivery, no signature, and anyone could have scribbled on it along the way. Now, there is a more secure way called TCP, which is like sending a registered letter. It's slower, yeah, but you get confirmation it arrived safely. Back in the early days, DNS chose the speed of the postcard over the security of the registered letter. And that choice, that decision to rely on those fast but flimsy postcards, well, it swings the door wide open for our first major attack, poisoning the phone book itself. This is called DNS cache poisoning. The whole attack is actually pretty clever in a terrifying way. It all boils down to a simple concept: a race. It is a flat-out sprint between the real, legitimate DNS response and a fake, malicious one, and the attacker just has to win that race. So here's how the race is run. An attacker tricks a server into looking up a domain. Now, while that server is waiting for the real answer to come back, the attacker just starts bombarding it with forged responses, thousands of fake postcards. They're trying to guess a specific little transaction ID to make their fake postcard look legit. And since that ID is pretty simple, it's not actually that hard to guess correctly. If their fake response arrives just a millisecond before the real one, the server accepts it, saves the malicious IP address, and just like that, its cache is poisoned. The result is absolutely devastating. Once a server's cache is poisoned, anyone who uses that server gets sent to the wrong destination. Imagine this. You try to go to your bank's website, but instead, you're sent to a perfect replica run by an attacker. You type in your login and password, and they've got it. All because a fake postcard won a split-second race. Poisoning the data is one thing, but what if you could turn the entire DNS system into a weapon? Well, that brings us to our second major threat: DNS amplification attacks. So, here's the brilliant, evil idea. An attacker sends a very small question to thousands of public DNS servers all over the internet. But, and here's the crucial part, they forge the return address, putting their victim's IP address there instead of their own. The servers, just trying to be helpful, all send their answers back, not to the attacker, but directly to the victim. And here is the key. The attacker specifically crafts a question that's designed to get a massive answer. A tiny 66-byte query can generate a response that's over 2,000 bytes long. We're talking a 30 times amplification factor. Now imagine doing that with thousands of servers all at once. You can create a literal tidal wave of junk data to knock almost any website you want completely offline.
Okay, so the system is vulnerable, it's bad. How do we actually fight back? This brings us to the principles of building digital fortresses around our DNS infrastructure.
So there are several core defensive strategies. A lot of it is just good digital housekeeping, like separating your server roles and filtering traffic to block obviously forged requests. Other strategies are more active, like limiting who's allowed to ask complex questions in the first place. And to fight those amplification attacks, you can use rate limiting, which basically tells a server, hey, if you get the same strange request over and over again, maybe just slow down a little and don't flood the network.
But all of those things are reactive measures, right? They're like building higher castle walls. What if we could fundamentally fix the problem of trust itself? Well, that is the goal of the future of DNS security. It's called DNSSEC. DNSSEC stands for Domain Name System Security Extensions, and instead of just blindly trusting the postcard you receive, DNSSEC adds a cryptographic digital signature. It provides authentication, which is a fancy way of saying it proves that the information came from the correct source and that nobody messed with it along the way. It achieves this by creating something that's both really beautiful and incredibly powerful, a verifiable chain of trust. It's not just one signature, it's a whole series of interlocking signatures that can be checked every single step of the way. Okay, so how does this chain work? It starts at the bottom. A website's own DNS record is digitally signed with a secret private key. To verify that signature, you can use a public key that anyone can see. But wait, how do you trust that public key? Simple. It is signed by the authority one level up, like the .com domain registry. And the .com domain's key? You guessed it. It's signed by the authority above it. This creates a chain of signatures that goes all the way to the top, to a single, universally trusted root anchor. And here is the absolute crucial point. If even one single link in that cryptographic chain is broken, or invalid, or forged, the entire response is just thrown out as fraudulent. It's rejected. This provides true end-to-end integrity. You no longer have to just trust the postcard. Now you can mathematically verify it. Which leaves us with a final thought to chew on. Our digital lives absolutely depend on this phone book for everything. Our finances, our communications, our jobs. So knowing just how fragile its original foundation of trust really is securing it with a verifiable system like DNSX just a luxury, a nice feature to have, or is it an absolute necessity for the future of a secure internet?